Where do you stand on this? Like, does Prime Minister Netanyahu now, as a serving Prime Minister, does he enjoy immunity before the International Criminal Court? Do other states that are members of the Rome Statute have the legal obligation to arrest and surrender him to the court?
Yes, they do. Because this is, and I'm presenting you, you've asked me, I'm presenting you the arguments on both sides. I'm saying that it's debatable and that it's not unreasonable to think that the judges of the ICC, of the International Criminal Court, could also have accepted the arguments that I set out and say, listen, this is going too far to prosecute the head of state of a country that hasn't joined the court. But they didn't do it. They took a decision, and before the International Criminal Court, that's the law. So Netanyahu can raise the argument, but in principle, the judges, the first time it would happen would be if he was brought before the three judges of the pre-trial chamber, and if he were to say, I have immunity, they would say, no, you don't. Read the judgment of the appeals chamber of 2019. And I say the same thing to France and Hungary and the other countries. They have to respect the judgment of the court, regardless of what you think. I'm an academic. I can, and as a lawyer, I can argue both sides. There are arguments on both sides. But at the ICC, if it were to come before the ICJ, this issue, in some form or another, then it would be difficult to predict the result. But at the ICC, it's entirely predictable, the result, because we have a judgment of the appeals chamber, and Netanyahu is going to be confronted with that, and the judges of the court are going to respect that. And so should the states that are members of the court. They have to do that as well. And Hungary is not doing it, and that's a problem. Hungary has gone a step further. They don't have to quit the court to do it.
But do they still have a legal obligation?
Absolutely they do, because the provision that allows them to quit the court says that it takes effect 1 year after. So today, by failing to arrest him, they're violating the statute of the International Criminal Court. And hopefully there'll be some consequence, some pain will be inflicted upon them for doing this. They're being lawless. The fact that you disagree with judgments of a court, I live in the UK, I might have disagreements with several judgments of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. But I can't refuse to respect them. I have to abide by them. And that's the case for the other members of the ICC as well.
And doesn't it also set a precedent for other nations to disregard the decisions of the court?
Absolutely.
Like today, the Belgian Prime Minister declared that that Belgium would not arrest Netanyahu if he visits Belgium.
Well, I haven't seen that statement by the Belgian Prime Minister, but I think the Belgian Prime Minister is rather in the same situation as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President of France. They don't control the courts. They can't rule that out. They can't, because they don't know what a prosecutor is going to do in Belgium, and they don't know what the courts are going to do. And they would be wise not to suggest that they're in the same position as Orban, who is a tyrant and who has done his best for several years to emasculate the courts of Hungary. So maybe Orban can say confidently, yeah, don't worry. I control the courts. I control the judges. Maybe that's true. But I don't think it's true in Belgium.
Are you concerned that other countries would follow suit and decide to withdraw from the court? Like, what do you think would be the impact of Hungary leaving the court? Like, are you expecting a domino effect?
No, I'm not expecting a domino effect. Anything is possible. I was actually more concerned about states leaving the court 3 or 4 years ago, because the court has probably underperformed in terms of its ability to deal with a significant number of cases and important cases from important conflicts and so on. And there was a great resistance that was very visible after Karim Khan became the prosecutor in 2021. He said, I don't have enough money. I need more money for my budget to do what you're asking me to do. And the state said, you have enough money. We're not giving you any more money. And it looked, they were getting a bit impatient. The British showed impatience. They made statements that were very critical of the court. Then the court got involved in Ukraine. And then the wind changed. And then the states that were members of the court, especially the Europeans, who are the bankrollers, they provide the money of the court. And they were very enthusiastic because the court got very engaged in the investigations into the Russians in Ukraine. They didn't really expect it to investigate Palestine, but they couldn't control it either. And for a few years, the prosecutor was also quite indifferent to the situation in Palestine. So he investigated Ukraine with enthusiasm, and he didn't want to go near Palestine. But that became untenable by 2024. And so he did more serious investigation and has issued these charges. And that's part of the problem about the future of this institution. It's got 125 states. They're not all wealthy European states. The biggest cohort within the court are the African states, who are, as a general proposition, really quite happy to see Israel being investigated about Palestine, or Israelis being investigated about Palestine, and who are more indifferent to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, which they see as a border war between two wealthy countries, wealthy developed countries, whereas they feel much more sympathy with the Palestinians, who they see as an oppressed people in a colonial type environment because of their history. So the court can't please all of its members all the time, and its challenge will be: can it give enough satisfaction to these different constituencies that none of them get impatient? Around 2011-12, when there was a threatened withdrawal by several African states, it looked like the court had tilted too far against Africa and was not actually investigating stuff outside of Africa. And the Africans didn't like it, and they showed it. And a few of them threatened to withdraw. The African Union threatened a mass withdrawal, but it didn't happen. We might get that in Europe as well, but at the same time, the Europeans have invested huge amounts of money, including huge amounts recently in the Ukraine investigation. I don't see them turning their back on the court immediately. For sure, they didn't want the court to go after Israel, which it's doing. But that's what you have when you have an independent court. You have to accept that they may go after your enemies, the people you don't like, but sometimes they may go after your friends, and you just have to suck it up and live with it.